Hello, hello! In this video, I'm going to be telling you about, I think, 10 different ways that you could theoretically get a sewing pattern printed. Throughout my own sewing journey, I've gone through all sorts of different roadblocks that have made it difficult to get a pattern printed. Like it could be limited budget, limited patience, limited space, limited tech savviness. And I know it's not just me. The people who are interested in sewing patterns over at my shop, Darwin Textiles, their roadblocks can be all over the place. Spoiler alert, I don't think that there's necessarily one size fits all perfect solution for everyone on how to print a sewing pattern, but I do think you'll find something in this video that maybe makes a little bit more sense than what you're doing now. Or you'll get to the end of this video and you'll be like, the way I'm doing it is way better than those dumb ideas. Now, I can't logically rank these in order from best to worst because they're all subjective and relative to what's happening in your life bubble. So instead, I've decided to do something much more nonsensical and fun and rate them with silly emojis to really convey the vibes that I feel about each one. All right, let's dive into 10 ways that you could print sewing patterns. The first one I think is probably the most obvious, but it's not always available, and it is to order from the pattern maker themselves. Pattern makers don't always offer paper versions of their patterns. Sometimes it's just the PDF. And even if they do, you then have to wait for them to ship it out and for it to come in the mail. So if you're looking to start the pattern, start sewing ASAP today, it's not as great of an option. But what's really great about it is that it's one easy checkout process. You just place your order and the pattern gets shipped to you. And it also supports the maker directly. And you don't have to tape or glue any pages together because they're going to ship you this giant sheet of paper that has all of the pattern pieces on it already assembled. You just need to cut out the pieces from the paper. I think this can be like a medium pricey option. It truly depends on the brand and what their pricing tiers are. My emoji rating for this one would be a sloth at a slot machine. It is kind of, I'd say, a rare sighting, and it can feel a little bit slow to wait for that pattern. But, you know, if all things go well, I do think it pays off for yourself to remove time and hassle, and for the pattern maker who gets the sale of the full printed pattern. Option number 2 is to use a home printer. Now, a home printer is what I typically have used to print patterns. You can have an inkjet or a laser printer. Either one, you're gonna have to buy a little bit pricey ink, and paper I'd say is less pricey, but you still have to buy it. Now, I think no matter what kind of home printer you get, it is just so complicated by Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and cords. It doesn't have to be, probably not everyone's is, but getting that frickin' printer connected to your computer can sometimes be half the battle, and getting it to not have paper jams or missing pages can also be super frustrating. And then at the end of the day, after that dumpster fire of getting it to work, you still have to tape or glue your pages together if you're printing them out on, you know, like 8.5 by 11 or A4 sized paper. But on the bright side, you can print it right here, right now, in the safety of your home, in your underwear. And so I think it's really great for people who like to do their own thing in privacy and are willing to maybe suffer more for it. My emoji rating for this one is like you're on a private jet and the pilot is like world-class trained. You might get there really fast, get to your destination really quickly, but today the pilot happens to be on drugs and has diarrhea, so you might not land at all. That is truly the conundrum here. It could be good or bad. Let's just go with that. All right, our next option is to go to your local library to print. This option, it does require you to get dressed and go out in the daylight during working hours. It requires you to log into a public computer, you know, to access your files, like get on Google Drive or wherever you have them saved, or bring in a flash drive with you. And I'd say another downside is you can't necessarily tinker with the print setting. And at the end of the day, you're still printing on regular sized paper, and you're gonna have to tape or glue those pages together. It really varies per page between different libraries of how much it's going to cost you, but it could be a really fun opportunity to get to know your local library, which could be really cute, and you could get a fun book at the same time. So, you know, you can't say that about these other methods. My emoji rating for the local library is like a businessman in a really itchy wool suit with a briefcase, and he has an agenda because, I think this process can be, you got to be really put together. You're putting yourself out there. You got to have like the flash drive. You got to have your files queued up. You got to be on it. You got to go at the time that the library is open, and it's a little bit itchy because I think sometimes going to public spaces and touching public things can feel a little bit itchy. So that's the itchy suit part of it. All right, our next option is really similar, using a local print shop. So I say local, and it could be like mom and pop shop local, or could also be like a Staples or an Office Depot. Those are big stores in the United States. And the dark sides of these methods, they of course still require you to get dressed, go out in working hours, and again, harder to tinker with the print settings after you've sent it to the printer. And you do still have to tape and glue those pesky pages together. But what's cool about this one, you can upload your PDF online from home and then go into the store and pick it up when it's ready. But I believe they don't print like the giant A0 size. They only print the small paper sizes that you're gonna have to tape or glue together. I did tinker around with this over on Staples and Office Depot's website, and with a pattern that was 21 pages long, it would cost around $5 in the United States to get that printed. My emoji rating for this one is very similar to the local library. It's still a business person in their suit, but they're a little bit more streamlined. They're shooting off their documents from home on their laptop. All right, our next option is an online print shop. These are websites that will allow you to upload your sewing pattern, and they'll print it out and ship it to your home on a giant piece of paper, like we mentioned at the beginning. But they're more of like a third party. If your sewing pattern maker doesn't sell printed patterns, you could always send the pattern to the print shop to get printed. Giant. Okay, so the sewing pattern seller has to offer A0 paper size, and you do have to, wait for that pattern to get shipped to you. And it requires a two-step checkout. So you got to buy from the pattern maker, download the pattern, then upload the pattern onto the online print shop's website, and then check out again on their website for them to be able to now print it and ship to you. Sometimes the shipping can be a little bit pricey, so you might want to buy several at once to make it worth it. And it might not be available globally. I have no idea. I know there's several places here in the US. I borrowed a list of places to print from Helen's Closet Patterns. I think the list is a little bit older, but I linked to it in the description. It has pattern printing places in the United States, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. In the US, I have tried tape-free patterns, and that was an absolutely fantastic experience. And just like their name implies, truly bright part about ordering from an online print shop is that you don't have to tape anything together. My emoji rating for an online print shop is kind of like you're at a tropical oasis, like you're really having your day in the sun, and you got strawberry daiquiri in your hand, and you paid for the extra little beach umbrella on the beach, and there's nice beautiful palm trees and blue water. It's a little bit more pricey, and things move a little bit slower. You can't print it right here, right now, but I do think it's a luxury. And I'm so grateful that these places exist to catch all of the sewing patterns that aren't printed by the pattern maker directly. All right, our next option is to check out your local stores and see what patterns they have available there. That's not going to be all the patterns in the world, so this method is going to require you to get dressed, go out during normal working hours. It requires some flexibility on design because they're not going to have it all, but this is like your Joann's, your Hobby Lobby, and then your super local sewing places. If for some reason you've never been in, you should at least go and check them out. They have these giant catalogs that you can flip through the books to see all of the different sewing patterns that they have in the store. And then you go over to the filing cabinet and you find the sewing pattern in your size. You could find one on a really great sale. Often at Joann's or Hobby Lobby, you'll find that they'll rotate the different patterns. Sometimes they're like $1.99 when normally they're like anywhere from, I don't know, $10 to $20. And what's really great is there is no printer, no ink, no paper required in this process. You just buy the physical printed pattern right there in the store. No taping or gluing any pages together because it's on this giant sheet of paper. But on the flip side of that is they're almost always printed on this like tissue paper, which I think is really annoying. It rips pretty easily and it crinkles and I don't love it. It shifts around on your fabric a lot when you're trying to trace it, but it's also really lightweight and folds up nice. And I think it's like a really fun offline experience to, really take screen time out of the sewing process if that's what you're looking for. My emoji rating for finding in local stores is kind of like living on a prayer. Like, you're really hoping this could turn out really good. If all things align and you are going to get your pattern, the store is open, the pattern is on sale, they have a design that you like or is similar enough to what you originally found online, or they actually have your pattern, that'd be crazy. And then you buy it, they have it in your size, and you actually make it, and the instructions make sense and it fits you right. Like, this could be a real home run. So it's kind of like, ooh, I hope this works out. It'd be really cool. If not, it could fizzle at any of these points. All right, our next options are more thinking a little bit more outside of the box. This one is to try printing a sewing pattern out at work or at someone else's work. I've asked my boyfriend to print sewing patterns at his school, at his work. I've printed sewing patterns out at school and at work. This one, I'll just say it requires some risky business. Depending on your workplace policies, they might not like that you're doing this, and so you gotta keep it under the radar. It does still require taping pages together at the end of the day, but it could theoretically be free. My emoji rating for this one is like a super sneaky undercover spy, because you really gotta stay under the radar. My next option is a little bit silly, but you could theoretically trace a sewing pattern straight from your computer screen. I have done this before. If you pull up your pattern on something like Adobe Reader or Acrobat, and you set the zoom in scale to 100%, you can use a ruler to check if normally there's like a little square on the first page to check, if the scaling is right on the paper. Turn your screen brightness all the way up, grab a piece of computer paper and put it over the computer screen. And you should be able to just trace those lines directly onto your paper. Obviously, the cons here are that it is pretty tedious and it is very hard for larger pattern pieces. I'd say nearly impossible probably for a really large like pair of pants or something like that. But what it is great for is tracing small pattern pieces. I think if someone was going to do, for example, my extra pocket pattern over on Charlie Darwin, that this pattern, it fits really well just within an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or like a couple pages, and so it would be no trouble at all to trace that. I think this is great for if you have no printer, no library, and or your pattern is just pretty small and you just want to whip it out right here, right now. My emoji rating for this one would be like desperate but resourceful, and you could, sweat it out to get this one done. You might feel a little bit silly while you're doing it, but at the end of the day, you're a thinker and you got there. My very last suggestion is not necessarily printing at all. It's projector patterns. And if you've never heard of this, this is where you use a projector, like you would project an image up on the wall. You would buy and project the image of your sewing pattern down directly onto your fabric so you can trace around those light beams and cut out your sewing pattern without any paper involved at all. Now, using a projector does require a sturdy level surface for you to put your fabric on that doesn't shake, and it requires a little bit of tech savviness. It's probably not a great idea if you don't sew very often because it is kind of a whole setup. And your pattern maker does have to sell either projector files, or I think you can still technically do it with A0 files. A projector might cost a little bit money up front, just like a home printer would, but you could thrift one. I've seen lots on Facebook Marketplace. You could check there, or eBay. What's really cool about projector patterns is there's no paper involved, no ink, no printer. No going out in public to pick anything up, no taping or gluing, and there are lots of resources online to learn. There is a whole Facebook group about projector patterns where people are developing their ideas and skills and strategies on how to do it. So I think I'm really excited myself to try this one out in the future. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it could be a very worthy option. Just requires a little bit of tech confidence. My emoji rating for this one would be like astronaut. I was going to say a space hero, but I don't know what that means. An astronaut, because it takes a little bit of like bravery to try it out. It takes a little bit of tech knowledge, but I think it's going to shoot you straight to the moon once you try it out and you get it figured out. Can't say for sure. Seems like it could also blow up just like a spaceship, but it could shoot you straight to the moon. This astronaut, I don't think is on drugs and has diarrhea like the printer pilot was. So, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried it yet. It could be bad too. I think it looks, All right, so that's about 10-ish ways that you can theoretically get a sewing pattern printed out. It was really good, I think, that I went through this brainstorming to make this video, because after really thinking it through, I feel really pretty confident that I would like to try and offer printed patterns of my digital sewing patterns for all of the peeps who really just can't be bothered by printers. I do think any of the methods I said here today are great options, but I'm excited to start offering the paper patterns. So I'm going to start working on that this week, and I invite you to join my email newsletter so you can get notified of the big event when those paper patterns go up for sale. And for those of you who like to print anytime and you want to take control over the process, you want to use your home printer, I've got you with my US letter and A4 paper sizes. And for anyone trying out the online print shop or the projector patterns options, I've also got the A0 page sizes already in all of my patterns for you as well. I hope this has been a fun one to watch. Let me know in the comments, which of these have you tried? Which one do you want to try? Would you use different emojis to describe each of the methods? And remember, wherever you are in your life bubble, you can print patterns your way using my patterns over at charliedarwintextiles.com/patterns. And I seriously look forward to creating something special with you in the future. See you in the next one. Bye.